Welcome back, everybody, to episode number 81 of FinalBossTV, your WoW in-game rating show. This is going to be the after show Q&A Protection Warrior Extravaganza. We'll take questions from chat room. We'll take questions from Twitter about the Protection Warrior stuff. Our guests are back. Brutall's here, Eman's here, Eddy's here, and we'll start talking about things right now. Okay.
Right now.
Okay, dope.
Right now. I'm ready.
You ready?
Let's do it. Yep.
Earlier question came in on Twitter about, do you guys have any thoughts towards the Gladiator spec in 6.2?
Well.
So, I'll take this one first, I guess. Gladiator spec to me is a spec that I played back when I was running them, dungeons and whatnot. I never really utilized Glad spec in a raid because I was always tanking, and you can probably, at this point in time, run Glad spec for a lot of, normals, if not all the normals in BRF, but I mean, it doesn't really serve a purpose as a tank, obviously, so I don't play it during raids due to the fact that I am a tank. Or was. Do you have any, I mean, Eman, you play prot, like, DPS orientations, but have you ever actually played, or do you, like, dabble in Gladiator ever, or do you just go Arms of Fury?
I went Glad for CMs that I got carried in my guild by.
Yeah! Okay.
That was about it. No, I guess, like, one thing I'd say is, like, currently it's not viable at all, right?
Right.
If you compare, like, Prot Warriors to Glad Warriors, Prot Warriors do as much damage, more on some fights, than Glad Warriors do. Except the top parses, at least. 6.2, obviously, they get the Mastery buff, which is good for them. I think it makes it more likely that you can use protection gear for it, right? Since your gear is already Mastery-based. I don't think it's going to be a mythic viable spec. I think it's closer to Fury and Arms, but I don't think it's mythic viable in Tier 18.
What do you think, Eddy?
I think Tier 18 so far, from what it looks like, isn't the most melee-friendly of instances. It's not been a very melee-friendly expansion, and I think that will get worse. And I would question whether there's space for a Glad Warrior in a raid setup.
Now, hold on. I'm going to interject right now. I apologize. I don't mean to talk on top of you, but you're telling me, all right, that Mythic Blackhand is not a melee-friendly player. Is that? We will have a discussion later. I think someone's actually at my door.
There will be words!
Someone just rang the doorbell. I will be right back. Carry on, gentlemen.
Okay.
No, it's not very friendly, and I think you'll struggle to find a use for Glad Warrior in Hellfire. I mean, sim-wise, and what it's looking like at the moment, it might be viable and fairly strong. It's just if the raid comp will suit it.
Right. Because the issue is really, it's only like a single target class.
Yeah, pretty much. And then just AFK with deep wounds. Yeah.
Has to be more single target damage than Fury, which is what they do for single target now. So we'll have to see. I don't know. This comes in, another one on Twitter. How important do you think it is to have a fantastic beard to be a I'll have to wait for Ryan for that one. Never mind. I'll go one more. I'll wait for him. Let's see. Can Eddy and Eman discuss crit versus mastery for Prot Warriors in current BRF and the crit versus mastery in upcoming Hellfire?
Okay.
Went over that a little bit during the main show, but if you want to like recap.
Well, do you want to go first, Eman? I don't know where to start, really.
Yeah. I thought we kind of covered in the show a little bit, right?
Right.
In current tier, right, you can stack mastery basically as much as you want because it's still the best mitigation stat, and you don't reach a point where it's worse than crit. You're like very close to that point though at the end of BRF. So going into next tier, there's definitely going to be a point. I think it's around 50, maybe 55% mastery, where crit starts to become better mitigation-wise, and you'll definitely see that point in tier 18. So that's kind of short thoughts on it. I don't know, kind of what more you wanted.
Guys, I don't know what you're talking about right now. I just got back. I apologize. It
Mhm.
actually, I thought I heard the doorbell. It actually wasn't the doorbell. In fact, it was my wife coming home. She was out eating dinner with her family while I was doing the show, and she brought me back leftovers. You know, no big deal.
Oh,
She likes to take care of me, and while you guys please don't mind me. You guys keep doing what you're doing. I'm just gonna handle a situation that has arisen here in my home. So yeah, I'll be here. I just may not be readily available for whatever. Please continue.
Well, the next question was very much to you, so I'll have to time it properly.
Fine. No, go. Fine.
No.
No.
Eddie's turn on the crit mastery stuff.
no, that's fine. We can interject for the beards. That's fine.
Oh, okay.
It's fine.
A question came up on Twitter was, how important is it, do you think, to have a fantastic beard to be a truly great Protection Warrior tank?
Well, I think it's absolutely a prerequisite to be an effective tank, and I think, of course, the longer you tank, the longer your beard eventually becomes. The gentlemen that I praise for their ability and skill, they have what I like to refer to as, stubble, a baby beard, something on their face to give it a little bit of character, a little bit of a shadow. Then we have someone like Bay, who does have, full-length hair in his face, but he's lacking the mustache. And that is something I like to refer to as the uniburn, two sideburns converging together. And then, of course, we have the full beard and whatnot that I am growing out for BlizzCon, which I'm very excited about. I hope to meet you all there. But going back to the original question, beards are absolutely 100% necessary to tank effectively. You have to remember, anytime you're tanking, there's normally spittle emerging from your mouth.
Oh my
due
god,
to
what?
shouting.
Where is this going?
Listen, man, spit is flying out of your mouth due to shouting, whether it's, calling out for cooldowns, whether it's, accusing somebody of standing and fire, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of activity and speech and communication that is involved with tanking. So having a little barrier, a little shield for your face when things are flying out of it or flying in, depending upon if you're consuming tacos at the same time, it's something very important to keep in mind. So all that being said, if you're tanking, please grow a beard. If you're a female tank, I have all the respect for you and for anyone in your same gender situation, but please do your best. Whether it's hormonal replacement there, it doesn't matter. Just go out there, get something on your face when it comes to a beard, and I promise you.
Can they use like a Halloween prop, like a nice
That's what I refer to
beard?
as that's the starter kit. From there, it just It just gets more natural, and it comes naturally too. It just happens, and you got to go with it. It's really what it boils down to. So, if you'll excuse me.
Okay. Right. Perfect. Two questions came up in chat. Let me grab them real quick. Do you think Protection Warrior survivability is baked into its defensive stance and too little into its talents?
Yes. Yes, I think it gets too much reduction based on defensive stance. I would be quite happy to see defensive stance reduced by 5% if they made our shield barrier so 20% more powerful.
Right.
Well, probably a bit more than that, 100% more powerful for 5% damage reduction.
Right.
Yeah, I think it would be more interesting that way. But it does have its benefit that it's just a flat, good out melee tank in the way it currently is. So there's both sides of the argument for that, I think. But it does...
Oh, Eddie?
No, go on.
Yeah,
okay.
I would say, like, if you reduce defensive stance, the passive reduction of it, right, you make us way more susceptible to magic damage, right? And we're already kind of weak at that, and we already don't have cooldowns to deal with that.
Sure.
So, but I completely agree. Like, we need, I think, one tier, like Guardians of Tier 100, that's a complete, like, survivability tier. I think there should definitely do something along those lines of adding a tier that is pure survivability, and I think it should be a defensive cooldown.
Yeah, but you need... I said in the main show, like, I don't know why when you're speccing your Protection Warrior tank, most of your talents are all about doing damage. It's...
Yeah.
Like, look back at the talent calculator. I mean, 45 is damage, 60 is damage, 90 is damage, and 100 is damage. You could argue 100 has some defensive benefit, but mostly Ravager is damage, Anger Management is mostly oriented to damage, and Gladiator's Resolve, which is 5% passive, which again goes back into Gladiator stance being, or defensive stance being where a lot of your defensive benefit comes from. Yeah. It's just strange. I mean, I've seen so many talent tiers and all the different classes I've talked about, and so many of them just have weird inconsistencies. So, another one came in from chat. Let's see. So, how do you handle DPS that rage about? The quote is McCleave. Do you feel a spiteful need to split the boss just enough so that it kills their cleave DPS? Is that a thing?
Well, that's my cleave. That's my cleave.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's my cleave.
I can say that on farm content, anytime someone complained about such an issue, I would typically just chase them around with the boss and attempt to kill them with a cleave mechanic of the boss's variety instead of their variety. So that's how I handled the situation. Eddy, E-Man, I'm not sure what you guys did, but that's what I did typically.
I wouldn't have said cleave is too much of an issue on any boss apart from maybe Maidens this tier, where you can potentially push one over a bit too early. I mean, threat isn't an issue outside of the first 5 seconds of a mob being up, so I don't really feel the need to split something up just to give someone's DPS. I think that's a bit underhanded. Yeah.
I think it's really situational. I mean, a lot of times, this is a thing that propagates itself really awkwardly in the community, whereas you're not doing good on the encounter unless you're like way up there in your guild's damage meters. But that, where it has, obviously you need to do damage as a DPS to kill encounters and to beat them. What you need to look at more is that as a team, are you defeating the encounter's mechanics? Because beating the encounter's mechanics means you beat the fight. Just because you're 3% above the next person in the DPS meter doesn't necessarily mean you're going to kill the fight. You don't win.
It also doesn't mean that they are a better player than you either, and I'll give you an example. I know for me, in my afternoon raiding guild, I typically prefer, I play Hunter there, I typically prefer to take on the responsibility and the roles of the person who, handles the kiting, clicks this, runs here, drops this mechanic, this ability there, etc., for 2 reasons. Number one, because I can keep my DPS up while doing it, because that's what progression is about. It's about maximizing your ability to do whatever you need to do, whatever your role is, while handling everything else. But secondly, I know that, personally speaking for myself, I'm not going to screw up such a mechanic or such a role or responsibility. I can handle that as a player as well. Sure. So just because someone's doing that 2 or 3% more damage doesn't mean they're a mechanically better player than you. Maybe they have a higher grade trinket than you. Maybe for whatever reason, they have, a Warforged weapon, whereas you don't. I mean, there's a lot of variables that go into it. And so while it's nice to be at the top of the meter because it looks like you're doing better than everyone else, I can almost guarantee you there are people at times, depending upon the encounter, the guild, etc., that are doing slightly less damage, but are better overall players.
It's just the thing that I've noticed a lot that ask me about is that like everyone's so focused on doing more damage, and where that's a positive thing to have in a certain light, you should want to like beat the encounter together, not just beat the damage meters.
I'm of the same mentality. I would much rather nerf my damage, manually. Like I would legitimately, or not legitimately, what am I trying to say? I would voluntarily, there we go, reduce my damage by, that 2, 3, 4, 5% to ensure that again, that mechanic was handled properly and we beat the boss, versus planting my feet and just shooting them arrows, boys. I would much rather just kill a boss and move on, That's my mentality in my approach to raiding.
Twitter brings up that the biggest issue for plaguing Prot Warriors right now is the clipping of the old Warr helmet on the new models. Fix helmet, Blizz, please. I know that Ryan had an issue with his Bulwark of Azanoth clipping incorrectly.
Oh my goodness, that was frustrating. That was frustrating.
Eddie's got there. He's right there. Yeah, he knows.
It's disgraceful.
Disgraceful.
It is. Like, come on. You give us amazing new character models, all right?
Right.
You give us a high definition version of the most sought out after shield in the game's history. And you combine those two things and somehow you allow shoulders to clip through the new HD shield? No, sir. Unacceptable. I was highly peeved at that situation, but I moved on. I let it go, but it should still remain in the back of everyone's mind. I'm just saying.
The question came in for E-Man about DPS-oriented stuff. Do you macro Bloodbath with Dragon's War? It seems that when I do this, it still casts Dragon's War first, regardless of how I put it in the macro. Or do you not macro them?
I don't macro them. Generally, like the first GCD, after you cast Bloodbath, you don't want a Dragon's Roar. You're much better off getting a Shield Slam or a Revenge in, so that they're back up still within Bloodbath. And Dragon's Roar is always going to be there. You just prioritize Dragon's Roar over a Devastate that you would put in a Bloodbath. I can't answer the question about why that macro cast first, though.
But that makes sense, though, that you want to hit your Shield Slam or Revenge immediately after, because then you can get another one up before the cooldown or the duration of the buff goes away. That's a good idea.
And Dragon's Roar is just always going to be there.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And if anything else, if you're trying to like min-max it in that regard, too, you might take damage and gain a weapon enchant, or have your weapon enchant proc, and you can Dragon's Roar with it.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
A little bit. So, we'll have to see. But that's a good point, though. So don't macro it. Good. All right. Ali asking in chat about how Heroes of the Storm announced the global play, so the players can switch between regions. Do we think that WoW could go global and World US Raiders gear up on EU servers so they can compete for World First? I don't know if WoW would ever do that.
I can't see it.
I think we're still not technologically advanced enough to do that in a reliable sense. I think we would still run into the lag issues, the latency issues, etc. Also time zone issues. I think that in theory it'd be awesome to put everyone on a level playing field. I would love that because, there's always the banter of, well, American servers get the content a day before everyone else. That's not fair. And then you have Europeans saying, I don't care. I will still kill everything before you. I'm not sure where these accents came from.
Right.
They kind of just sprang forth. But the point is, as awesome as it would be, again, to put everyone on equal footing, I just don't think we're capable of doing that yet. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I would love to hear everyone else's opinion. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, isn't it actually the opposite? EU like the fact that they're behind because they get to see what Americans do first, and then they can improve upon that. They actually like the fact that they're delayed a little bit.
I'm sure that is true for a lot of people out there. I know for when I was GMing as Static, we did not raid on Tuesdays, and instead did Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, so that we could see how what route guilds would take on Tuesdays, what bosses they would kill first. We would look up strategies, kill videos, etc. And while we would still kill a boss, a day after a lot of people, we would struggle for a shorter period of time because we had more information available to us by the time Wednesday night rolled around. So I'm sure a lot of that would transition over to Europe too. But they're also just really good. So
from your sides, obviously E-Man's US side and Eddie's got the EU side. Do you ever think that would be? Because I wouldn't even know. I don't even know how much crossover that is. Are there any prevalent like EU raiders that raid in US or vice versa guilds? Wouldn't you could fix the latency by routing it differently, but still, wouldn't that be a problem for like high-end Mythic raiding, having like 200 plus MS? Possibly? I don't know if that would even be a thing they want to do.
Potentially, yeah, it would be a problem. I mean, either way you look at it, if you've got two people playing from two different time zones, well, one from Europe, one from the US, either one of those parties is going to have high latency relative to the other. So, to be honest, I can't really see the point in doing it.
Right.
I think for top 25 at least, it doesn't really matter in terms of viewing what the other time zone has done in terms of progress, because they won't be streaming what they're doing anyway.
I also think it needs to be brought up that while World First definitely matters for progression raiders like us, we either strive for World First or we root for a specific guild to get World First because we're incapable of the schedule or whatever the case may be. But after that World First and after the US First, it doesn't really matter which region starts killing bosses at a faster rate. And in my opinion, here's why. Just this past week, I was looking for a guild. I wasn't looking for a European guild, so I did not care that, there were 20 European guilds that went 10 out of 10 before the next 20 US guilds, because that has no impact on my my ability to play or my ability to join a guild. It's interesting, certainly. It's a great topic to discuss, absolutely. We're doing it now. But it doesn't actually matter when you're looking for a guild in your region because you're bound to that region.
Yeah. I think it'd be an interesting thought if you could, if the realms merged in a way where you could play and group and do not raid content with the other realm. Like if I could group up and play with Nobble, for example, over the pond, that would be pretty great. But I don't think they'd ever do the raid-ish oriented EU-US combination server things.
It might work for Flex and LFR.
Yeah, maybe. Possibly for normal and LFR. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a neat idea. I don't necessarily know if it's going to happen. We talked about the anger management for last stand uptime in 6.2 during the main show. But did you guys want to add anything to that? Probably going to be a possible factor for some fights where you needed the more cooldowns with anger management in last stand with the tier 18. Eddie?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point. The question was, do you think anger management for last stand-up time will be a thing? And I can honestly see it potentially, very, very realistically, being a viable thing to choose. Instead of Bloodbath in the last tier, you go for anger management. You have the added bonus of being able to have your movement abilities like Heroic Leap have a lower cooldown. And it reduces your cooldowns like last stand. And the way that's having synergy, it already has synergy with Shield Barrier and Last Stand. If you have the Trinket in there as well, I can see that being potentially a very viable control spec to play for high-end progression raiding on most fights.
Yeah. I mean, E-Man, you already take... you already take anger management, like, right now all the time, so not much might change for you in 18.
Yeah. I mean... I think it depends on like what healing comp you're running and how many external cooldowns you have. I think is the biggest thing. If you don't need the extra external from having less stand on a shorter CD, and you don't need the extra shield barrier strength from it, and you have a lot of external CDs, it's probably not going to be that viable. Part of it is I don't think a lot of bosses have like really short timers on their abilities.
Right.
I think from what I recall of testing, like a 1.5 minute CD is already short enough to like when you're taunting and trading off, like 1.5 is already short enough to cover every time that you would need it. So there might not be a lot of benefit to anger management shortening it just because of how you trade off.
Yeah, there might be awkward points where you might need it for the other cooldowns though, so it just kind of is a happy accident that last stand gets reduced that much and you have it up more times if you need it. But yeah, that's true, because depending on if you're tank swapping and if you're even tanking the boss, you might have 10 to 15 seconds or more where you just gained that, or you reduce the time, but you're not tanking, so you don't even need it. So it depends. I guess it depends on the bosses. So at least there might be a possibility to switch back and forth between anger management if you need more cooldowns, or just take Gladiator's Resolve, because there's not really a lot of ad fights outside of maybe Hellfire Assault where you'd probably take Ravager. Because not a lot of fights have, maybe Ravager and Zul Harok. I have lots of ads. About it though.
That was the only fight that I used it on so far.
Right.
That was about it.
Any other thoughts or questions? That's everything I grabbed from chat. Nothing on Twitter except that amazing Ladybeard by Tally. It's pretty wonderful.
Oh, I didn't see that. May I have a link, please?
It's she tweeted at you as well, Ryan. So you should have.
Excuse me while I venture over to Twitter.
yes, indeed.
Yes. That is amazing. Tally, if you're listening, all the respect, my dear. That is quite impressive. You should be proud.
Hang on, I can't bring it up on stream. Can I bring it up on the show to immortalize it forever? There it is. And that's it. Okay.
That is excellent.
You can find it on the Twitter. Any other questions I think that I missed before we get out of here? Do. Dun, 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 dun. I don't think I copied and pasted a whole bunch of them. Oh, truth. I was going to say to your question to Rappy, so you didn't go empty-eared, I guess, or not responded. A lot of the trinket balance I didn't want to get into in this because outside of the Archimond one, the other trinkets may change in the balance pass or may be really situational. The one you're talking about right now is the Tyrant's Decree, the extra bonus armor flat, and then you gain the stamina stacking, and then it goes away if you go below 60% health. That may come out to be just wicked bad, and they'll change it. Because if you fall below 60% HP, which might happen, then you just lose the whole thing. I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to like talk about theoretical, really big tinfoil hatty stuff because it might change completely. So, what we're doing, I have a plan that we'll be doing tier 18 catch-up episodes. So we'll have like 2 tank, 2 DPS, and 2 range DPS, or 2 healer episodes that will like talk about how things in Hellfire Citadel have shaped out because we'll be done with the class episodes by then. But that'll be in the future. That we'll do the catch-ups, like what are you using for this and that. We can't cover every class and spec during that, but we can get a general idea of what's happening for the different realms of DPS tanking and healing when it comes to it. So,
Sir Overlord, Sir Overlord Bay. we have a question from Twitch chat from Side BBY, or as I like to refer to him, Pasidi Bibi.
Yes, yes.
And he asks the question: the 75 Rage Potion. Is there ever a situation in a raiding environment where you would consider using that potion instead of a bonus armor pre-pot? So we're talking about pre-potting with a Rage Potion over bonus armor. I see E-Man
the head shakes already.
Shaking his head from side to side. E-Man, can you explain why that's a terrible idea, please?
I mean, what is the potion? I forget now. It's 1,000 something, right? I'm gonna look it up.
1,000 what? I apologize.
It's 1,000 bonus armor, isn't it? Around there?
Oh, the bonus armor potion. Yeah.
I'm not on.
It's 1,500. Yeah, 1,500 bonus armor is just absolutely enormous.
Absurd. Absolutely.
And 75 rage is nothing, especially at the beginning of a fight. You're gonna berserker rage. You're gonna charge in. Then 1 GCD and you have enough for a shield block if that's what you want to do on your opener. Yeah. And the bonus armor is already just.
Yeah. I would say there's really never a scenario. I can't even think of a scenario where you would need 75 rage the moment the fight started. I mean, between charging in, shield slamming pretty much off the get-go, and so on and so forth. I'm pretty sure you're not in any real danger of dying in the first X amount of seconds of a fight anyway, so the rage doesn't equate to nearly as much mitigation or damage as an armor pot potion. So I would say that's a terrible idea. Don't ever do it.
It might be fun for, like, PvP, if you're PvPing as, like...
This is a rating.
I know, I'm just saying. Sir. Hey.
Please.
Right.
Please.
Yeah, the armor potion is just too good. Armor potion is way too good. Yeah. Wait, how much attack power does that bonus armor even equate to? What's 1,500? It's not 1-to-1, is it? That's still a wicked lot.
Yeah, it's 1-to-1.
Is it 1-to-1?
Bonus armor, yeah.
Okay. And if you even do the thing that some tanks I see do is you start the fight with, you go in low HP, so Blackrock procs, and then you get healed up immediately on the pull. So you go in with your pre-pot armor potion and your Blackrock enchants up as well. So that's like wicked min-max possibilities. I'm sure E-Man's done it before. Every time. Just a smile.
I mean, I don't use Blackrock, so not a problem.
Right, that's true too.
Thunderlord's better.
Thunderlord's
for DPS, definitely.
Right. But, yeah. Truth, yes. Guard, and guard, question mark. Guard. Guard. Guard, yes. Alright, it's button time, second time around, gentlemen. That is... good Q&A, some story time for the after show for episode 81 of FinalBossTV. Around the table again real quick, we had E-Man from SummitGuild.com. You can go check out their progress going into Tier 18. And, of course, your rankings are actually posted on your website, too, so people can see what changes going into Tier 18. Your logs and stuff.
Yeah, we have logs open. We are, right now, the best US 3-day-a-week guild, so we're hoping to keep that going.
US 26, if I recall, right?
US 26, yep.
Awesome.
3-day-a-week guild, so we'll see.
It's pretty good. Thank you for being on the show, sir. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
We had Eddy coming back with Mr. Pandaria. Now in Ascendance, you can go follow his progression and his world first 17 split runs going into HFC at ascendance-guild.eu. Thank you for being on the show, sir. It's awesome.
Thank you very much for having me again.
Very, very good. Then there's this guy that eats tacos on the internet.
Just me.
Yeah. You can go follow Brutall at twitch.tv at BrutalStatic.
Yes.
And watching me tacos on the internet.
Yes. Do it. Just for those who are curious, I raid in the afternoons, typically from 11 to 3 p.m. Eastern, 4 days a week, and then I'll be raiding 4 evenings in the week as well, Monday through Thursday from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern. So you can check me out there if you want to see progression rating from a hunter perspective or Moonkin perspective.
Right.
And I look forward to seeing you.
Absolutely. Thank you for being on the show again, sir. It's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, my friend. I cherish you dearly.
Oh, goodness me. You're going to make me blush. All right, everybody. That's it for us here. Thank you for watching the show. Everyone behind the scenes. Again, if you have questions for Elemental Shaman, which is next week, Discipline and Holy Priest will be the week after that due to IRL scheduling and flip-flopping around and me being sick, out of town, all this good stuff. So Elemental Shaman, then Discipline Holy Priest, and then either Mage or Warlock, or Shadow Priest. I don't know yet, because it's too far away to plan. So send your questions in at the Ask a Boss email down below. Trust in your seal of tempered fate until it becomes something different next patch. And until later, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Wait with the nice people. There it is. That's perfect.